Los mandatos formales. So, ¿cómo se dice mandatos en inglés? ¿Cómo se dice mandatos en inglés? Sí, commands, no? But what is a command? What is a command in English? What's an example of a command in English? Go to your room. Clean your clothes. Leave me alone. Take out the trash. Don't bother me. Don't talk to me. Don't tell her that. Anytime we tell anyone to do something, right? Or even not to do something, don't go to bed, stay up. Or don't study, come out with me. Those are all commands, okay? Whenever we tell somebody to do something. So what's up with this part? Formales. Why are they called mandatos formales? Formal commands, which is referring to talking to whom? Well, in this case, we have two options. We're either talking to somebody in the usted form or the ustedes form, which is why they're classified as formales. But that really only applies to usted, because when you use the usted form of a verb, instead of saying como estás to, you say como está usted. Why would you do that? Why would you use usted, Brooke?
Like if somebody's on like the same, level or above you.
Right. So, for example, when would you use usted?
Like teacher.
Yes, exactly. So when she said a level above you, like some exhibiting authority or respect for somebody, a professor, a stranger you don't know, maybe a doctor, a police officer, somebody who's older than you, etc. But also, Walker?
You can also be polite with usted though, right?
Yes, definitely. It's very cordial to start off using usted with somebody. Initially, I definitely recommend using usted whenever you speak Spanish first, and then depending on how the person responds to you, then you'll know to change to tu, or if they're comfortable using the tu form with you, you just follow their lead. Exactly, but it always demonstrates good manners. And in some countries, like Colombia and Costa Rica, they don't use tu, hardly at all, almost never. So they use usted even with their children. Parents with their children even use usted. So it's not always just formality. Sometimes it's just culturally. Whereas like in Spain, they rarely use usted, and they almost always use tu. So it really just depends on where you are. When in Rome, do as the Romans do. So usted is a different verb conjugation. So when would you use ustedes? Does that have to do with formality? Ustedes? What is ustedes? Every day in class, I'm like, buenos días, ¿cómo están? When I ask you all, ¿cómo están? You usually respond with like, cansado, bien. Because what am I asking you when I say, ¿cómo están? Exactly. I'm talking to all of y'all, as we say in the South, or you guys in the North. Which is also a demonstration of how, second person plural varies among cultures. Ustedes is y'all in Latin America, y'all in Spain is vosotros. So this is very geographical as well. Ustedes is y'all. So if you're talking to all your roommates, let's say you live with a bunch of slobs and you're tired of it, and you need to tell them to clean up their act, you would use ustedes commands, take out the trash. Y'all need to take out the trash, or, dust, or sweep, or vacuum, That's when we would use the ustedes form. You've heard ustedes commands all semester from me, because I am always telling you what to do, because that's part of my job. For example, before a test, I say, saquen una pluma, saquen un lápiz, or before an ampliación, or I say, pongan todos sus materiales en sus mochilas or debajo de sus pupitres. So I've been using commands with you all semester. So technically, this is not necessarily new. But today we're going to look at it in the context of our vocabulary, our chores, los quehaceres domésticos. Because, in college, we don't have the best home hygiene always, I remember teaching a college freshman, and he literally confessed to the entire semester Never once making his bed or washing his sheets, which actually is not that surprising. That's very typical of somebody new to the college life because somebody else isn't doing it for them and they have to learn how to do it on their own. So I've got lots of advice for you because I'm a grown-up, I'm a mom, and this is what I do, you know, tareas domésticas. So let's focus on the meaning first since we've got new words, and then I want you to see if you can figure out how these commands are being used. How do you form a command in Spanish? And I'm giving it to you in the context, everything is in the ustedes form because I'm talking to y'all. Okay, so primero, estudiantes, ustedes limpian sus casas frecuentemente. So again, first focus on meaning. What verb do we have here? What idea? What am I telling y'all to do? Clean your houses. Right, exactly. In general, clean your houses frequently. Now let's take a look at the grammar. You know this is a command. You know I'm telling you to do this. So what happened to the grammar? Tiffany?
The A tried to.
Muy bien. So el infinitivo, she said the A, referring to the A in the infinitive, limpiar, changed to an en. Normally it would be an. I would ask you all, limpian sus casas frecuentemente? Do y'all clean your houses frequently? And if you're like, no, I'd say, limpien sus casas frecuentemente. And that tiny little change in the ending is indicating that I'm telling you to do it. Okay? Otro ejemplo. No ensucian su ropa cuando comen. So what am I telling you not to do? Don't what? Get your clothes dirty. Muy bien. How'd you figure that out? That it was to get dirty. Well, the picture, see. And we also, in the previous one, we had the verb limpiar, which is similar to the adjective limpio, which means clean, like, oh, you know, tu cuarto está muy limpio, or tu casa está muy limpia. But the adjective for dirty, the opposite of limpio, is sucio, right? Which is very similar to this verb, ensuciar, el infinitivo.
These will all be in the ustedes form, right?
Yep, because I'm talking to all y'all. Ensuciar. So these switched to, again, limpiar, limpien, ensuciar, no, and ensucien. So remember, commands can tell somebody to do something or also, of course, not to do something. Okay, otro ejemplo. Estudiantes barran el suelo después de dar una fiesta. So what am I telling you to do here?
Sweep your floors after.
Yeah,
a party.
having a party. Remember, dar una fiesta, we don't say tener una fiesta, we say dar una fiesta. And you should sweep the floor afterwards. So, ¿cuál es el infinitivo de barran? Barrer. No, barrer. So an AR verb switched to en, but this is an ER verb and it switched to an. Exactly. And why do I do that? If I say barren, now what am I doing? I'm telling you, right? A command. Barren el suelo. Estudiantes sacudan los muebles cada semana. So what am I telling you to do? To what? See, Tiffany? Dust. See, dust the furniture each week, every week. ¿Cuál es el infinitivo de sacudan? Sacudir. No? So even IR verbs. So ER and IR verbs endings change to AN when we want to tell a group of people something. Estudiantes, no se acuesten tarde por la noche durante la semana. So here I'm telling you not to what? What does no se acuesten tarde mean? Tarde means what? Late. Más or menos, don't go to bed late. No, don't go to bed late during the week. ¿Cuál es el infinitivo de se acuestan? Acostarse. Muy bien, es reflexivo. So we're still going to use a reflexive pronoun after the no, before the verb. But a couple things happen. It's an AR verb. So, of course, just like limpiar, limpien, this verb changes to en as well. But what else happened here? Stem change. We didn't see stem changes in the previous chapters so much. Like no stem changes in the imperfect and a handful in the preterite. But now with these commands, we do need to make stem changes. We must have stem changes, like in the verb dormir, for example, or servir, por ejemplo. Okay, so just to review in general, we use commands to tell one person, usted, somebody of authority like Brooke said, or that you don't know well, like a tourist or a flight attendant or something like that. Or ustedes, when you're talking to a group of people, unless you're in Spain, you would use vosotros. But in Spain, you'll figure it out. If you go there, you'll figure out if people are telling you to do something. And actually, commands in Spanish are used much more than they are in English. This is something you would acquire very quickly. First of all, because if somebody's telling you to do something, you figure it out much quicker anyway. But also, because in Spanish, the whole concept of can you please doesn't exist. We don't use the verb poder. Puedes pasarme la sal. Can you please pass me the salt? They don't talk like that in Spanish. They use the command páseme la sal, por favor. And they make the command courteous by attaching por favor on the end of their request. So commands are used so much more, just culturally speaking in Spanish, I feel like, than they are in English. Even in a restaurant, I've seen in phrase books like, I would like, could you please bring me? They don't speak like that in restaurants in Spanish. They use the verb bring me. Tráigame otro tenedor, tráigame otra copa de vino, tráigame un vaso de agua, por favor. And you throw the por favor on it to demonstrate courtesy. But we use commands so much more in Spanish than we do in English. So you'll pick them up quick if you go ahead. Okay, so how do you form a command? When we form the commands, as we noticed, limpiar, simply changed to limpien, or barrer, simply changed to barran. And a couple of years ago, actually it's probably been like 4 years, a student came up with this little rhyme. We were about to take the test, and somebody was struggling, and she was like, oh, just go to the yo, drop the yo, and change it to the opposite of what you know. And this order of operations is very important to implement when forming a command, because why? Why is it so important to start with go to the yo? Why is it important to put the verb in the yo form first? Nico? You must have the stem change. Exactly. You must have the stem change. So like for the verb dormir, you would definitely need to change it to duerma first before you produce duerma, sleep. No? Okay, bueno. Y a ver, let's see. So I wanted to practice first just the general concept because now we're going to build on it. Some verbs like divertirse or relajarse are reflexive. And when we have a command with a pronoun, for example, if it's a reflexive pronoun, we use the pronoun se because remember, this is just usted or ustedes. But what happens to our pronoun is a little bit different than what we've seen. Or if we're saying, don't tell me the surprise, that would be a command, and we would need an object pronoun may. Or if I wanted you all to serve, the drinks, then I would need to use servir with las to say, serve them or whatever. So a lot of times we do have pronouns with commands, and when we do, the command and the pronoun are a little bit different than what we've seen before. So let's take a look at some examples. We already talked about limpiar changes to limpien, but a lot of times, and I'm sure this happened to you as a kid, somebody tells you to do something, and especially when it has to do with household chores, they have to tell you more than once. Your parent says take out the trash, but then you don't do it. So they replace the pronoun trash with it. We use pronouns lots with commands. So I've told you to clean your house already, and so now I'm going to tell you to clean them. Limpian las. No? And I'm using las, so we talked about this a little bit on Thursday, as a pronoun, lo, la, los, or las, object pronouns. Limpian las. What happens with our command when we use it with a pronoun? What happened grammatically here? So we attach it to the end of the command, limpian las, and then something happens to the way this verb is pronounced. Limpian las. There's emphasis, right? There's an accent mark. And in this particular one, our accent mark is on this I. But we're going to take a look at a couple more examples because there's some variation with this. Oops. However, even though there's some variation, the rule as to where we put that accent mark actually is consistent. I'm going to see if you can figure it out. So here's another example. What am I saying here? Barreno? What's it saying? Yeah, sweep it. Exactly. Sweep it, because I've already identified el suelo, or contextually, you're standing there with a broom. There's only one thing really logically you would sweep, so I would say barrenlo. And why am I using lo instead of las, like in the previous example? Because lo is referring to what? El suelo. No? Singular masculino. No? And again, here's our accent mark on the A at the beginning. So right now you might be thinking, oh, you just put it at the beginning. However, that may not always be the case. Sakuran los. What's this thing? Does them. See, exactly. So why am I using los? I'm talking about the furniture. Los muebles, plural, masculino. But now our accent is over the U. Now it's in the middle. So let's figure out why it might be here in a second. Acuéstense temprano durante la semana. What's this telling you to do? How did you say acuéstense temprano? Remember, earlier in this slide, I told you no se acuesten tarde durante la semana. Remember that slide? No se acuesten tarde, and I was telling you not to do what? Not to stay up late. So what am I telling you to do here? I'm not using tarde, I'm using temprano because I'm saying go to bed early. No? So two things are important to note with this verb, and we'll talk about this in more detail here in a second. But when the command is negative, where is the pronoun? In front of the verb, where it always is. We always put pronouns in front of the verb. Unless it's an affirmative command, unless it's a verb in which we're using a pronoun telling somebody to do something. So the pronoun is attached, like we've seen in the previous examples with the previous verbs, because all of these verbs are telling somebody to do something. However, in this verb, the accent mark comes in the middle, and we have two vowels, and it's over the E. So let's figure out why. Let me just make sure I don't reveal it just yet. Okay, let's figure out why this is. What consistency, what can we conclude about pronouns, commands, and accent marks? How are we supposed to figure out where the accent mark is going? Anything consistent, Brooke?
Isn't it like the first single or alone? C and U are always put together, right?
They don't have to always come together, but it does have to do with vowels which make sounds. Nika?
It's like the first vowel before you change, before, the first vowel before the end.
You're on the right track. So he's noticing, and you all might be too, he's noticing that none of the accents are coming on the end, right? And we're not including our pronouns and what he's saying. He's talking about in these sounds, like acuesten, sacudan, paran, limpien. There's no accent mark there. But he's noticing that before that ending, we do have our accent mark. And our accent mark goes on our vowel in what's called the to last syllable. The second to last syllable. The last syllable is our ending because we're referring to the command, not the pronoun, in terms of syllables. Remember syllables? Remember in second grade where you clapped out words? Did y'all have to do that? Okay. I'm sure you haven't thought about syllables in a very long time. But Spanish is a very vocalic language. In syllables, there's lots of syllables and lots of the words due to the emphasis and the overuse, not necessarily overuse, but the frequent use of vowels in Spanish. And so our accent mark, our emphasis, our intonation occurs on the syllable, the second to last syllable. So not the ending, the syllable before that. So what happens with a verb, and I deliberately put this one up here, a verb that has two vowels in a syllable? How are you supposed to know? And this might be what you're kind of thinking about, Brooke. How are you supposed to know which vowel gets the accent mark when you've got two vowels? And Brooke had said, she said, well, when you see, I think what you were really trying to say is like when you see a U and E together, usually the E gets the accent mark, right? Is that kind of what you were somewhat noticing? And that's true because we have words, and hopefully you learned this when you learned your question words back in Spanish 101. ¿Quién? ¿Dónde? ¿Cómo? ¿Por qué? ¿Qué is an example of this. ¿Por qué? And ¿qué? ¿Cuánto? ¿Cuál? ¿Cuándo? When you learned your question words back in Spanish 101, you knew you had to put accent marks on all the question words. We know it's a question word, and we saw this on the Chapter 9 test. K versus K. You had a word bank, and you had K without an accent mark and K with an accent mark. And the K without an accent mark was a connector, but K with an accent mark was a question word, which is why some students that wrote ¿Qué pasa? On their tests got that answer right because they needed to use it in a question, and that one had an accent mark on the E because it was asking a question. So Brooke was noticing, oh, when U and E are together, the E gets the accent mark, and she's right. Does anybody know why that is? What are our vowels in Spanish? A, E, O, U. So we know the letter E is a strong vowel. When it's with a weak vowel, the E gets an accent mark. What other vowel in Spanish is a strong vowel? Oh, kind of, but really, well, I see what you're saying, like E, like the letter I. And definitely A, or A. These are really the two strong vowels. And we know that because of our question word. ¿Quién? Which letter gets the accent mark? The letter E. Or in ¿cuál? The A. Our strong vowels are the vowels that get the accent marks. So when we apply the rule to accentuation with pronouns and commands, our strong vowel is going to get the accent mark. So, acuéstese means to go to bed. Despiértese means to get up. And our accent mark is going to go over that letter E. Despiértese. And that means to get up. Okay, so that's pronouns with commands, which we'll talk about. Negative commands, though, when we tell somebody not to do something, follow the same rules that we know about pronouns that we've learned all along. They come where in relationship to the verb? Before verb. Just before, which is normal, which is what we're used to. Nos divertimos, por ejemplo. Okay, so ahora vamos a practicar los mandatos otra vez. Necesitamos continuar. Kind of already did something like this. I guess I could have done these for our practice. Pero barrer would change to, obviously, para. We'll go through these really quickly. We already kind of practice like this from my other classes. Okay, los irregulares. Clase, ponga la mesa antes de comer. So what's this saying here? What am I telling you to do? Set the table. Muy bien. ¿Cuál es el infinitivo de ponga? Poner la mesa. No, think about what we've been doing and what's happening here. Otro ejemplo. Clase, haga la cama después de levantarse. What's this telling you to do? Make the bed. ¿Cuál es el infinitivo de haga? Hacer. So poner is ponga. Hacer is haga. What's happening? Remember the steps to form a command? What do you do first? Go to the yo. ¿Cuál es la forma de yo de hacer? Hago. ¿Cuál es la forma de poner? Pongo, chicos. Entonces, todos los verbos that go to or that are go in the yo are going to have the sound ga or gun in their command form. Every single verb that is go in the yo will change to ga or gun. Now, diga la verdad, tell the truth. Or haga la cama, oiga la música, ponga la mesa. You just have the letter N if I'm telling all y'all to do it. Pongan sus materiales en sus mochilas. That's what I say before every test and every ampliación, even if they're negative. Salga, tenga paciencia, traiga el pastel, venga a la boda. ¿Entienden? So that's why the go to the yo is so important in that first step. Not just for stem changes, but also for these verbs that are irregular in the yo forms. Okay, otro cambio fonético. ¿Cómo se llama esta chica? ¿Cómo se llama ella? ¿Cuál es su nombre? Cecilia. Cecilia. So I use this name on purpose. Why? What happens to the letter C when it's next to an E or even an I in Spanish? It changes it to what sound? The C changes to an S sound. Right. So our infinitive of this verb is what? Sacar. And it has a hard C sound. So we can't just go to the yo, drop the yo, and change it to the opposite of what you know with a car verb. It has to maintain that K sound. Q-U-E. Sake. Have we seen anything like this before? Where do we see a rule like this before? Yo form of the preterite tense. So a car verb, not just, remember, we're not talking yo form. We're talking usted and ustedes. Any verb ending in car is going to change to Q-U-E. Any other verbs that have rules like that that we remember? That we've seen before? Guard. Muy bien. ¿Cómo se llama él?
Jorge.
Jorge. Muy bien. So what happens to that G when it's next to an E? It becomes soft. It makes an H sound. But what's the infinitive of pague? Pagar. So we can't just change it to the opposite of what we know. We need to throw in that U to maintain that hard G sound. Now, pague con su dinero. If Jorge is my friend and we're dining out together, why would I use su? Why don't I just say tu dinero? What if I'm in Costa Rica? What if I'm in Colombia? Even amongst friends, they don't use the tu form. So if Jorge is Colombian, then I need to say su dinero, right? Because that would be consistent with usted, not tu. ¿Entienden? So careful with the errors as well. Zar verbs, just like we saw with the preterite tense, changes to CE, and it's a command. It has a stem change as well. What's the yo form of conducir? Conduzco. Muy bien. So this is also a spelling change. That's new, not consistent with what we learned in the preterite tense because it's really irregular. And then we have completely irregulars. Estar, estén, not very difficult because it's just an accent mark on the E which makes it irregular. But ear is completely irregular. Vayan. And that V is like a B. Vayan. Have you ever heard vaya con Dios before? No, that's a command I've heard amongst Mexicans. Go with God. Vayan. Go. That's the command for go. Saber, sepa, which is similar to the preterite, but not quite. Ser. How do you pronounce ser as a command? Sean. I know, a lot. Don't worry. I've said it all week long on my other classes. Inevitably, somebody says Sean, or they say si. But this is Spanish, so we want to pronounce every vowel. Sea or sean. Sea paciente. Be patient. Ver would then be what? Vean. Now, estos son irregulares.